Long live play.
Hello and welcome to the 62nd episode of Long Live Play, the #1 Australian PlayStation podcast, full of lukewarm takes and mental breaks, hosted by myself, Govinda Whitehurst, the #1 host of this podcast, and the Lara Croft to my Nathan Drake, Mr. Khayl Adam. If you like what you hear, you can and should review us on any platform that will let you review. I always specify Apple, but then I realize that's very elitist, even though I am elite and you're all poor. That is elitist. So if your podcast service allows reviews, you should leave us one. It does help us in some way. You can also follow us on Instagram and Twitter at LongLivePod, and there's a link tree there for other places that you can find us if you so wish. With that preamble out of the way, Khayl, how you going?
I'm wonderful, thank you, Govinda. I'm having a great time. Just a good day, another great day in the golden life of the great golden god, Khayl Adam. Full-time video game journalist, entrepreneur, podcast host, man of mystery, quite frankly.
Not very mysterious. I can pretty much guess what you're doing at all times, at any time. I can just guess what you're doing.
No.
I think I can.
No.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about it. I'd say 70%, still not 70, probably 40% of the time you're working. Probably
Hustling.
Another 40% of the time.
I prefer hustling as the term. I don't work. You work. I hustle.
I'd rather work than hustle. Hustling sounds like more work. Then the other 40% of the time, I'd say you're sleeping because you seem to go to bed early and have dinner at like 4:30 in the afternoon, like a psychopath. And then the other 20% of the time, you're playing games or in consuming media.
There's probably like a 1.5 to 2 hour period where I watch The West Wing every day.
Well, that's why I say consuming media, because I know it's there.
Yeah, that's essential. Need that.
You're so learned and like scholarly. Like you're watching The West Wing, and I'm watching Schitt's Creek.
Schitt's Creek's great though.
Dude, the second run through, big fan of it. It's the perk of Emily not seeing certain things where I'm just like, oh yeah, I'll watch this again. What a good show.
Let me hit you with this one though. We're about to wrap up The West Wing, so this is a big deal. We need to figure out what we're going to move on to next. I think it's time, because I've never seen it before, to watch Better Call Saul.
Interesting. You know what it is, and I'm sure this will get poo-pooed by anyone listening. I have no urge to ever watch Breaking Bad again. Like I did it, I watched it. Cool, I enjoyed it. I thought the end was fine. But it's like it doesn't stick in my mind as this like earth-shattering show that it was at the time.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I watched it once through. I really enjoyed it. Erin didn't like it. Didn't really get past the first season. And that's what we're going into Better Call Saul with, because it just has such universal accolades. It is...
But so is Breaking Bad.
Well, yeah, and it is really good.
That's what I mean. And I think it is good. I'm sure it's a very, very good show. It's been a very long time since I've seen it. But just in my memory banks, it doesn't stick in there like that was the best show I've ever seen. Like a lot of people will say it is.
It's certainly recency bias, but in my mind, I'm like, I think I like Ozark better. I loved Ozark.
That is recency bias for sure.
Although I haven't finished it. I've only got like 3 or 4 episodes to go. I just need to get there and knock it out.
Yeah, it's true. But I just rewatch sitcoms. I don't watch anything new. That's me. And I watch Blown Away. Great show.
Never heard of it.
It's just it's like a reality-ish show where people do glass art and then try and win best in blow, they call it, which if you just heard that without the context would sound like something else, but
you're right, I am more learned and academic than you. You are right about that.
I'd like to think I'm more artistic though. I'm like watching like art sculpting like on TV and stuff like that. I do really want to get into this show. I think it's on Binge, or I think it's HBO for anyone that lives in a normal country. And it's about people making pottery. And there's this old guy on it, this old dude, one of the judges is this old dude, but he's actually just like the nicest guy. Someone makes a bowl and he's like holding the bowl doing the judgment, and he just starts like crying, being like, it's just such a beautiful bowl. So he loves pottery. Like it's his entire being is pottery, and I just really appreciate that. It seems wholesome, so I kind of want to get into that.
I will say, our sort of like safe space show that we watch in my household with my mother-in-law. You know, if we have guests over or whatever, we watch the Great British Bake Off. You familiar with this?
Okay. Similar. The pottery show is very similar. I think it's British as well,
Yeah.
but it's about pottery, not, like baking pottery and not baking food. But
It's interesting to see Noel Fielding these days, and he's sort of a little chubby boy.
he's kind of chubby. He's exactly the same, just a little chubbier. And aren't we all, Khayl? Huh?
It's so funny because I loved the Mighty Boosh. Like, again, no disrespect, love the Mighty Boosh, but it's so fascinating that it seems like Noel Fielding's place in like popular British culture is like they just put him on this super normie show about a baking competition, and they just point to him and be like, "Look at how eccentric and weird he is."
Be funny. Say something funny.
And he just doesn't. He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go play cricket with a cricket," and everyone laughs, and it's like, it wasn't that funny.
Yeah, no, look, and again, gonna get poo-pooed probably by some people. Boosh was fine. Mighty Boosh was fine. It didn't hit me like it hit so many of our friends. It was just fine. It was okay. I enjoyed bits of it.
I genuinely enjoyed it. It's so funny to look back on just like the brazen blackface they do in it in one episode.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Some of it has not
Is that
aged
the
well.
dude, the highway dude, and he's got... Is that old Greg? It's not old Greg.
No, it's
Nah, it doesn't matter. We're gonna get stuck in this for too
It's
long.
alright. Yeah,
the
it's
guy
fine,
with
it's fine,
the
it's
lifesaver eye.
I just remember he's doing like a Carlos Santana kind of guitarist thing.
Yeah, I can't remember it anyway.
Anyway.
It doesn't matter. Mighty Boosh, everybody.
Hateful show. So that was me. How are you? Are you back to normality? No more country hopping holidays? You're just back to your doldrums, and I'm sure you want to kill yourself.
Look, it's... yeah, pretty much. No, it's actually pretty fine. It was almost a nice little reset for me, because when I came back, like, I didn't have, like, a whole backlog of shit I had to do. It was just kind of like, this is what you have now. And I'm like, okay, because all my tasks are rolling so quickly that while I was away, they just had to give my stuff to other people to finish. And then I got here and it was like, that's your fresh list and start. And so I kind of felt like it was a good little reset almost, which I'm a big fan of, actually. Did my tax return.
Oh, how fisted did you get?
Not at all, dude. Because I worked for Apple at the start of this tax year, this financial year, that buffered me pretty nicely because they were taxing me at a higher rate with the assumption I'd work for the whole year, and I didn't. And then I'd kept a decent amount of money aside, and then when it came to like what I actually owed, it was like half of what I'd kept aside. So I'm considering it like I got a tax return.
Yeah, right.
Like I kept a decent chunk aside, and it was like, this is what you owe now after like my deductibles, like my PC, and I get like a small business tax offset and a middle income tax offset. And I was like, awesome. And then I was like, that's it? That's the bill? I was like, sweet. Well, I'll give you that. I'm going to go buy a headset and I'll probably buy a monitor, which I'll just write off next year.
Yeah.
Or this year, I guess. So, yeah, honestly, pretty happy with that. And yeah, it's a public holiday today, which is awesome because it means I just only have a 4-day week. And I'm getting a free lunch on Friday because I have to go into the office. So...
And they say there's no such thing as a free lunch. They say there's no such thing.
Well, I bet it's not free. I bet I'm going to get fired or something, but hey, at least I get a free lunch. But that's a quick summary of me. And looks like you're going to have a pretty quick summary of what you've been playing this week.
Yeah, well, I guess just before we get into that then, I should say, Govinda, I'm leaving you. I actually guested on another podcast and it went really well. I'm thinking about just...
Did you and as much as you do in ours that
No,
I cut
I was
out?
very-
I want to see if he cuts them all out, because if anyone, none of you have probably heard it just then, but leading into what Khayl just said to me, he said 3 times. You won't hear
Never
them.
know.
You're welcome. Maybe I'll leave them in just so people can hear.
just for
actually.
dramatic effect. Yeah, I went on the Mage cast with the Well-Read Mage. It was a lovely time. It was episode...
What'd you talk about?
I'm getting there, Govinda. I know you're so jealous, but just let me give the preamble. You know what I mean?
I'm trying to let you talk, and now you're not talking. Go.
It was episode 87 called Jurassic World of Warcraft. Parentheses, Total War Warhammer 2. And so me and Moses, we had a lovely chat Over 2 hours, actually.
That's the main thing I've got umbrage with, is after an hour and 20 minutes together, you're gone. You're done. You can't talk anymore.
This was exciting. He was such a masterful interviewer.
Maybe it's because you didn't have to do anything. Like, you were just kind of you were just there, and everything was prepared for you.
It's true.
I was gonna say you just have to exist, and it's not up to you to keep the show rolling. It's up to him.
But it was a great show. We talked a lot about just the tabletop game of Warhammer, which I spent way too much of my life not really playing, but like absorbed in and surrounded by. And then we just talked Total War, which, as you know, is something I can literally talk about for hours.
So you just said you spent too much of your life doing tabletop Warhammer games. What is too much of your life? How much Warhammer is not too much? Because I would argue that
Yeah, look, compared to real lifers, so my thing, and I don't want to spoil all this audio goodness that I think our listeners should go and enjoy, and I'll include a link to the episode. It's actually public now, so you can listen to it too, Govinda. I give you shout-outs. I give this show shout-outs.
Oh, you talked about me.
I actually, embarrassingly, several times, I think I bring you up.
That's so cute, dude. So cute. We make such a cute couple.
I don't. That's just a hook, and now Govinda will be forced to listen to it to find out if I actually
Yeah, because while you're such a narcissist, you subscribe to his Patreon so you could listen early. Yeah. I'm such a narcissist that I don't really know anything about Total War, really, and I'm going to listen to it just to hear you say my name 4 times.
That's fun. We talk about, the differences between us all.
I'll give it a listen.
Oh, wait, before we're done. One of his listeners had a comment, and they made me say words to make fun of our glorious accent. Let's see if it works for you, Govinda. Say the following phrase: "Rise up, lights."
Rise up, lights.
Do you know about this? This is apparently a thing that Americans do to Australians to trip them up.
What?
Apparently, that sounds like you said razor blades.
Well, because that's how they think we talk. They think we're saying, "Rise up, lights." That's what they think the Australian accent is. When I'm saying "rise up, lights."
Yeah, I'd never heard that before. It was fun. We had a good chat about it.
Rise up, lights. That's what they think the Australian. So when I was in America, I had a friend, and she refused to not do this because I asked her a few times to stop, but she would just try and do the Australian accent, and she was really bad at it, and it was offensive at a point. And I would say this, so I was like, if you had a friend who was Asian, you wouldn't just go up to them and constantly try and imitate their accent badly. And she was like, "This is different." I was like, "Nah, it's sure, but I've asked you multiple times to stop it, and you still do it, and it's honestly the worst attempt at an Australian accent you could ever do." So,
Govinda, you're ruining the sweeping generalization I made when I spoke on behalf of all Australians and said that we're actually really cool and we don't really care about that kind of thing. But here's you.
Oh,
whining.
dude, it's different. It's different when you live there. I was there for almost 2 years, and it was daily. I worked with her. It was so consistent, and I was like, this is... And there's something you notice, you get it kind of everywhere you go. They hear the accent, and they go, "Oh, shrimp on the barbie," and I'm like, "No!
First
They're
of all, prawns! They're prawns!
But it's fine. I'm okay.
Yeah, so anyway, go check that out. I'll leave a link. It was good fun.
Maybe I should get on there.
I can arrange that. I think he'd love to have you.
I think I could arrange that. I don't need you, okay?
Yeah, look, I'm sort of... See, I'm a pundit now. I'm a part of the chattering classes. I go on podcasts, plural, and that's just who I am now. And I just need you to treat me with that level of respect.
I'll never do that. You know that, right? Just know that in my mind, whether it's right or wrong, I'm above you, always.
Well, I'm going to bring myself back down by revealing this, that I've again spent another whole week. I almost deleted it, but I couldn't. I just play RimWorld now. I've played it for nearly 20 hours. I just play it all the time. It's this colony simulator. We talked about it last week. I'm trying to get achievements in it. I find it so satisfying. I love it. It's this sounds crazy, and I know you have a weird bias, but legitimately, this is a top 3 game of the year contender right now.
Interesting. Okay.
Absolutely.
I'll have to give it a go.
I mean, it's not a... it's not a strong year. Elden Ring is number 1. I don't know what number 2 would be. RimWorld's probably in the top 3.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is like number 2.
I mean, we're
It
gonna
has
get
been a
stuff.
bit of a grim year. I'll need to get a short list going for our game of the year at the end of the year.
I'm sure God of War makes it in. It's funny how neither of us
Presume
have
so.
mentioned Forbidden West in this conversation, but that's
Well,
the
look,
kind
at
of
this
year
point, it is probably in there. Like, it's that Elden Ring and God of War probably by all said and done.
by default.
But maybe knock off Forbidden West and chuck in RimWorld.
I didn't want to live on it too much. I'm interested to talk about what you've been playing, but I will say this: I just bought Cult of the Lamb.
Wow. You pre-ordered?
Yeah, I think it comes out tomorrow or midnight.
It comes
the
out
following
tomorrow.
day.
I think it'll be midnight tonight because I think it is the 11th. I
Yeah.
think you were right, and it will come out. I assume midnight tonight, which is pretty chill. Now, it's funny that you said you bought it because I actually thought it was already out the other day, and I was gonna buy it, and I was like, I'll buy it, and Khayl can play it. That's fine. But it wasn't out, so I didn't buy it. So now I know that you bought it. I'm not buying it.
I'll hold you for the next game. So I'm very excited for that. And
Me too. I'm kind of interested. I saw someone on Twitter or something explain it as Animal Crossing with demonic cults.
Yeah, I've kind of heard that. I've heard from people that have it now that it's quite good.
There was a demo on Steam a little while ago, which I heard was pretty well
Yeah.
received. My one concern, and I will hold off full criticism until I play it, is it's roguelite,
Yeah.
which I assume is kind of because it's like Don't Starve a little bit.
Yeah, I don't really know. I've written about it so much. I've watched every trailer that's been released, and I don't really understand how it's roguelite. I don't know.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, so I don't know. Like, can you lose and do you have to start again?
I don't know.
Or is it just? Yeah, I'm so interested. Like, and from what I can tell, I can't gather whether or not it is a like kind of Don't Starve. Like, play until you can't survive anymore and you die or something happens to you and you start again, or if it is more of an Animal Crossing where you've created this cult and you are continually feeding it and doing different things and stuff. So
I think the village management aspect, it looks fairly light. What I think it might be closer to is that Rogue Legacy, like where maybe you die and you like lose progress in the area, but you keep your village.
but the village maintains. Oh, that would make sense. And like
That's
you
my
get
understanding.
resurrected by the demon. That's yeah, okay.
Um,
I'm actually kind of keen for it too. Again, I'm gonna say this every week until I get it. That's my new thing. I want a Vita 2. I want a Vita 2
Me
so
too.
bad.
I should say this too. I've been playing my Vita every night. I've been playing Final Fantasy. I've been playing Trails in the Sky.
Do you have a
Every
second
night.
one?
A Vita?
Yeah.
No.
I thought you did. Damn.
I
They're
just
really
have
hard to find.
I just have my fucking legendary OLED one that we bought back in
Yeah,
2014 is when I bought that.
Part of me doesn't matter if it's OLED or LED. I don't really care because I think the LED is nice because the touchpad on the back is smaller.
The only reason I want it has a better battery life, but it's lighter. I like that.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
that. But I'm
So
happy
I
with
do
my
want
OLED.
to try and hunt one down just because I kind of just want something like that for some of those like older games that just work really well on it.
You know
Like,
what's-
Final Fantasy is great for it, but
Such a funny concept that I literally haven't thought about in years is I've been playing Final Fantasy X crossplay. I just forgot that was a thing. Like I play it on my
wait,
Vita.
like cross save.
Yeah.
Oh, that is
And I just
cool.
upload it and then I play it on my PS5 and
Are
it's
you
so
gonna play
funny.
10 too?
Well, that was my goal. Like when the baby's born, my thinking is I'm going to be playing a lot of Vita. Let's see if that works out to be accurate. But
Yeah, probably. Well, it might be. It might be more accurate than you think, but you're going to cherish your sleep. So the like Vita in bed thing, I don't think is going to be as much of a go as you might think it is.
just to finish up my segment, Govinda, we're in my segment, and we'll get to your segment. I just need to finish my segment. Thank you.
You were handing it to me a little while
I
ago,
wasn't
and then
actually. You
back.
took it,
No,
and I had not handed it.
No, you were handing it, and then you took it back and talked about Cult of the Lamb, which isn't even out yet. And so I feel like I've been put on blast for no reason, and I expect an apology by the end of the episode. Thank you.
Just to finish the thought was that I think we're about to be inundated with games because the week after that we get Soul Hackers 2, and I'm hearing good things about it as well. I've been watching a lot of trailers. It's like, it's the latest Atlas game. They've learnt a lot since Persona 5. It looks fucking tight butthole.
You did sell me with Alice.
And that's all I had to say was the name. It was
fuck you.
No, I was writing about it today. There's like this soul matrix system, which is kind of like a combination of mementos and social links. And I was like, fuck yeah, I love these games.
Sorry, I'm confused. I wasn't sure. Did I ask what you've been playing or like what you're gonna play and what you're excited to play? Because I feel like we've gone down a rabbit hole that
I'm just telling you that they're coming.
We've never opened. I don't know where this whole came from.
I'm excited for games again. We're coming out of the droughts, the doldrums. We're getting back into the promised
land.
Honestly,
my sleeper excitement game is Callisto Protocol. I'm actually super keen for that.
I am too, but I know I'm going to be too scared to play it.
It's going to be real scary, but I like that and I appreciate it. Yeah, I don't know. I'm excited too. It's weird. God of War is really just it's coming. It's fine. Like I'm not super hyped for it.
I will be.
And when we were talking about Forbidden West just before, how we kind of we didn't mention on Game of the Year discussion. I think it's kind of because Sony just seems a little bit stuck in a third-person action game rut.
We've known this for years, but it's getting real now. Where you're like, all right, cool.
Like if Forbidden West came out 4 years ago, it would have been the best game anyone had ever played.
Yeah.
But it comes out now, and you're like, it's just more of the same. It's a bit better.
I've played it before. I've played it
Very
before.
good game, though. It's crazy, but we are getting a bit jaded, aren't we? Speaking of being stuck in a rut, and you leaving me, I think I'm leaving you, Khayl.
You got nowhere to go.
I don't play PlayStation anymore.
I knew this
I fully succumbed to being Master Race. Even Emily called me out on this, where I was playing my PC, and she was like, "Do you even play PlayStation anymore?" And I was like, "No, not really." So what I've been playing is a game that is exclusive to PC and Xbox Game Pass at this point in time, but I think it will be like limited exclusive, and it will come to PlayStation at some point for sure. With an 80% guarantee. You got the 80% Govinda guarantee. That's Power Wash Simulator, Khayl. Power Wash Simulator. Now, what is it, you might ask?
I'm glad you asked that because I just had to Google it. I've seen people talking about this game. Like, people like it, but I didn't really... Like, I think I've seen a little clip of it, actually, but I had to remind myself. Take it away.
It's exactly what it sounds like. You simulate washing things with a power washer. This is actually published by Square Enix, which I thought was really bizarre. And it first popped up, I saw Square Enix did like a little sizzle reel of all their games upcoming and just recently released. And that was in there, and I was like, what the fuck? And I Googled it, and I saw a Skill Up review.
Oh yeah.
And he loved it. He fucking loved it.
You know what else Skill Up loved? My latest review. Sorry, I just had to bring that back up again. That was a little callback from the time that popular YouTuber Skill Up highlighted my review. Thank you. Continue.
God forbid you get successful as a gaming journalist. You're going to be insufferable.
Oh, yeah. Imagine when I get verified on Twitter. I just applied again the other day.
Oh, you can apply to get verified?
Yeah.
I don't know you applied for it. I thought they'd just give it to you.
I've applied several times, but I will be successful one day.
I wonder if I can apply as like a number
Anyone
one
can
host
apply.
of the number one Australian PlayStation podcast.
Nah, it's not good enough.
What do you mean?
I mean, I'm fucking... It's a whole thing. There's a whisper network of how you can get it done. Essentially, you need... To get it in like media or podcast, you either need to be massive or have X amount of bylines or, there's a whole lot of criteria and
I don't care anyway. Anyway, I wash stuff with a power washer and it makes me feel good.
Isn't this truly the death of civilization? You're like, I will pay money for the privilege to virtually wash something.
So it's just like it's almost like a therapeutic thing. Like you can just completely turn your brain off. You get into a level like I just did a playground and it was filthy. And like Skill Up explains it really well where he says like it's like an adult coloring in book, but it's the opposite. Like instead of seeing like a black and white page where you're like, oh, I can make this really colorful, you see the dirtiest thing ever and you're like, I know underneath this is something really pretty. And I think maybe my PC does it well and just handles it well, but like things shine and glimmer and the colors really pop once you've cleaned everything off. Like you clean a window and it's like beautiful. And you're like, oh, that felt good. And every time you clean like a panel, the whole level's broken up into like a panel. It's like a window frame, one wall, and you just like, you're going through and once you fully clean it and 100% that panel, it dings. and it's like the serotonin hit, you know. That's like an extra injection into my vein of me just being like, oh yeah, baby. So I've played more of it than I'd like to admit, and I was just listening to the first Game of Thrones book, and no regrets. Great time.
Just watching. Now there is an interesting psychology here because the act of gurneying something is quite satisfying. What's to stop you getting the same satisfaction from just like scrubbing your bathroom?
I think it's the clean lines that it leaves. Like scrubbing isn't like you don't just do like one scrub and the bathroom glass is clean. You've got to like put stuff on there, give it a good scrubbing, whatever. Whereas with a gurney, there's the power where you just go, it's clean. And this game does a good job of like, you've got different heads, like nozzle heads. So like one will do a wider spray, but it's not as powerful. And you'll go through a big bit of dirt and it will leave, there'll be like some mold or like rust is built up. So you need to swap to a more powerful head so that you can get through that sort of stuff. And then it's all about becoming like efficient. And again, back to the skill up review, he was like, I would love to see someone do this competitively.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like, how quickly can you do it?
It would be fun.
Like a head-to-head, two people trying to wash the same space in like a quicker time, because there are efficiencies. You can flip the nozzle head 90 degrees. So like you get really good at like going up a wall, flipping it over, and then going across. And it's just a weirdly, like, honestly therapeutic game.
Sorry, just as a really quick aside on the subject of competitive gaming, Evo was just on, and I actually had to. I've never watched Evo now. This is, of course, the fighting tournament owned outright by PlayStation now, I think.
I think so, yeah. Either very heavily sponsored, but I think they do run it. Like, I think it is a Sony event.
We knew there was going to be news at the end of the Street Fighter V tournament, so I actually just watched a couple of hours of it. Just like, I was too early.
You said that so casually. I thought you were going to say a couple of fights, and you're like, a couple of hours of it.
Yeah, it probably ended up being like 2.5, 3 hours. I just had it on the background, and it was like really riveting. I've never played Street Fighter V, and to be totally honest,
so
like,
good at it.
Yeah, but at a high level, it doesn't look super impressive. Like, it's cool what they pull off and the comebacks they do, but it is a lot of like, crap, like down to diagonal back, and like, they're like wave dancing or whatever they call it, and yeah, it was legitimately pretty awesome. I got quite invested.
Did you see there was a really good, I think it came from Evo, but during Evo there was a really good photo of someone playing, I think it was Street Fighter, and their opponent's next to them, but they have a cardboard box that they put their hands in to play, so they can't see what their buttons they're using and pushing and shit while they play. They take the shit real seriously. But I don't know, I never really got into it, but I think it's probably a really good spectator sport because it's just all on one screen, you know who's who. I find if you ever watch, I was watching Shroud play Valorant competitively because he's apparently in a team again. It's just really hard to follow. Like, they're swapping between characters constantly. Like, it's just not an easy way to follow it. Same when I've ever watched like competitive Overwatch. Unless you've watched it long enough and you kind of get what's going on, it's super hard to follow because there's just so many people, they play different characters on different levels, and so you're trying to figure out who's who, and it's just really complicated. Whereas I think with a 1v1 in a fighting game, it just makes way more sense. If you've ever watched competitive Smash Bros, that shit is wild.
Yeah, it's... Well, and this was just so simple because it's just Street Fighter. Like, they're just such... it's just traditional fighting game. But yeah, anyway, as a quick aside that turned into a longer one.
But anyway, other than that, I did play a game that you can play on PlayStation just to level out the field a little bit. I played some Tropico 6.
Now, are you playing this on PlayStation or PC?
Yeah, I'm definitely playing it on PlayStation, dude.
What? And just... Sorry to...
I'm not. I'm playing it on PC.
I was going to say, because I got Tropico 6 on PS Plus or something. And I love strategy games, well documented. I couldn't get into this because the frame rate sucks on console. It's like sub 30.
Tropico 6? I don't think that was a PlayStation Plus game.
Oh, maybe it's Tropico 5.
Was a long time ago. And that's why I started playing Tropico at all. But I played Tropico 5 for a decent amount. I find with strategy games, I actually really enjoy them, but as soon as I fall off, I'm gone.
Yeah.
Like, I'll just, like Jurassic World Evolution or whatever it is. I was into that first one for like 2 weeks, hard. Like, I played a lot of it. But as soon as I decided to not play it anymore, it was done, and I was not going back to it. I think a lot of that was because the sequel was coming out, and I thought I'd get that, but then paying full price kind of didn't sound like something I was going to do. But Tropico 6 is pretty cool. Like I did all the tutorials because I felt like I should, and then at the end of it I was like, I really wish I didn't have to spend an hour and a half doing tutorials. You know what I mean? I wish there was a better way, and I think there probably is. I would have preferred, rather than a extensive tutorial like quests and stuff, to just have like tips as I go along. It
is a fine line to walk. I found this with like Crusader Kings 3. The tutorial in that sucks ass. Like you just kind of have to keep throwing yourself at it because it does that more sort of tooltips popping up, and it's just not enough sometimes. Like,
yeah, it is a fine line. It's just I just felt like I just wanted to get in there and do something, but it's a lot of it is like you don't know enough. Like, there's a lot you need to know about it, about like hiring staff for specific things. And I started playing a campaign, and I had no workers. I was like, how do I have more people? No one's having babies. I have no tourists coming here. Like, how do I don't know how to get more workers to work in these places. And if I hadn't done the tutorial, I wouldn't have known that, but I had, and I did. So
yeah,
it just was the tutorial really bugged me for a long time. And anyway. But other than that, I haven't played it for too long, but I do love a good little sim game. Nothing too in depth. Nothing too in depth. The old Sim Cities where you had to do like drains and electricity lines and stuff, that's too much. I don't want that. But this is enough.
I would like you to try RimWorld then, because I think it can be in depth if you want it to be, but like I'm so enamored with the early game, just like building a shelter, keeping people alive, like the basic stuff. And the combat.
Yeah, I'll give it a go. When you mentioned it again and you were very avid about how good it was, I grabbed my phone hoping I was going to download it, and then realized I can't log into your account on my phone, only on my PlayStation, so I will download it.
It's one of those games where I think it's like 800 megabytes or something. It's like
that's the best
ludicrous.
Too, when you get a little game and you're like, oh, I can't wait till this downloads, and it's like, boop, done, and you're like, yes.
Because I will admit, I did have a minute of regret. I bought it, and it was like $60 or something. I was like, oh, this is like pretty steep. But holy shit, have I got my money's worth. Like, even if I were to stop playing it now, and I won't, I'm going to be playing this like on and off for a long time. I think I would have had my money's worth. It's worth every penny.
Okay. All right, well, look, other than Tropico 6, I don't have too much to say because I haven't played it. I played it for like a couple hours, and I'm in like one campaign, but so far I like it. I do like being a dictator. I do like it a lot.
I do love the whole, like communist Banana Republic shtick that's going on.
Yeah. It's funny you say Banana Republic because there was a point where I needed to export bananas, otherwise the crown would take the land off me and I wouldn't be the dictator anymore. So you can change the working conditions of each little like thing you've got. And I had a plantation of bananas, and I needed them to work harder, so I bumped it up to a longer working day and no days off because Daddy needed the bananas.
You're going to work. You can work.
And of course I gave my dictator a big fat mustache, because...
Of course. Well, if that's all said and done, Govinda, how about some quickfire news? Govinda, Jeff Keighley is at it again. He's promising the moon. He's offering you the stars and the sun. And I just don't know if he's going to be able to deliver. I am, of course, talking about Gamescom opening night live. Now, you mocked me several weeks ago when I included this as a story because I said there was going to be announcements, right? Well, Jeff has taken to Twitter and he said there's going to be 30 of them. 30 game announcements on the big stage in Cologne, Germany, where Jeff... Actually, I don't know if Jeff's going. I have no idea about that, but regardless, there's going to be a lot of announcements. Now, how does that strike you?
Now, firstly, I only gave you shit because we already had so much news to go through, and you put in something where it was like, Gamescom will have announcements. And I was like, okay, that doesn't need to be there. We already know that. It's Gamescom. Sure. Now, you're giving me more details, and I think this is acceptable, because now we know it's a 2-hour-long live show, which is too long.
Yeah, that seems egregious. That does.
30 plus games on stage. Probably most we've seen. I hope there's some surprises in there. I couldn't even tell you what we're gonna see. And I don't want to see games. Like, I don't want to see Callisto Protocol. I don't want to see God of War. I wouldn't mind maybe some Harry Potter. Just to see.
I'd see some God of War gameplay. I think that's appropriate.
True. Even, you know what? I just don't think I need it. That's the
I
only
don't
thing.
need
That's
it.
what I'm saying,
No,
right?
I don't need it. But
Like
I
Harry
think that
Potter,
would be-
they need to sell me a little bit more on Harry Potter, other than the fact I just want to be a boy wizard and live my childhood fantasy. So I kind of want to see a little bit more of that, rather than just the trailer they had with the like solve puzzles, and he just said Accio like 7 times in a row to solve puzzles, and I was like, I need a bit more. Whereas God of War, like, I'm getting it, I'm playing it. I'd actually rather just be completely in the dark for that game.
Yeah.
You know, and just like, if there's new gameplay elements, I want them to surprise me rather than me see them at a Gamescom thing 2 months before it comes out. Now, I wouldn't mind seeing some Last of Us gameplay, like maybe an extensive Last of Us gameplay, because
I don't think we
I
get
have
that.
played that.
I don't think we
I
get
know,
that.
but it's almost a little concerning to me that we seen any other than
Oh,
the
yeah.
leak of.
No, we got that like 16-minute thing that they released after all the leaks. Like, I mean, obviously they'd worked on it before.
The little featurette thing where they talk about.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, this game is so random and people don't think it needs to be made. Let us tell you very explicitly what we have changed.
There is certainly a backlash brewing to that, because now, like, you know, super fans are pulling out all the quotes that the developers like put in there, saying they'd be like better AI. It was going to have like gameplay mechanics from the second one, and it doesn't look like that's the case at all. Like,
no, it definitely does. Did you watch that featurette? Because they talk about something that I thought was really cool, and it was something that actually kind of bothered me in the first game. And I don't even think it's in the second game. I think it's even beyond that. But it's where your AI can actively staying in stealth.
Yeah.
And so they have predictive stuff where they can see that like the enemies are going to walk around a corner, so they have to reposition to stay in stealth. Rather than like, remember in the first game, like Ellie would just run out in the middle of nowhere and people would see her but not do anything about it.
I think, and I mean, yeah, sorry not to cut you off there. Like, that's cool, but that's not what the developers implied. They implied we were getting like the awesome AI from 2, which like had them combing rooms looking for you. Like, we're not talking about Ellie, who can't be damaged anyway. Like, they very strongly implied we were getting like enemy AI that was going to be on par with the second game, and I don't think that looks like we're getting that.
I'm going to watch this video again. I'm pretty sure they show it and explain it.
Yeah.
And they do it a little more technically, but it would be surprising to me if they didn't put that in, because I don't know why you wouldn't.
That's why I think there's something brewing. Like, yeah, there's expectations in place. So if this really is just the reskin cash grab that a lot of people think it is, I think, yeah, we're going to hear about it. It's going to be interesting.
Look, it could. Every game's a cash grab, right?
Yeah.
This just feels worse because we had a remaster 4 years ago.
I mean, it's certainly not worse than Persona 5 Royal saying on PS5 saying there's going to be no upgrade path and it's going to be full price again. You just got to cop it.
That's fucked.
That is.
Yeah,
that's like
that is
really egregious.
Anyway, what do you think? What do you think they're going to show? Because I don't even know.
I did just want to leave on, Summer Games Fest. Keely's last show had some cool stuff, but it was a little bit lackluster too. So when I see 2 hours 30 games, I'm kind of gonna have my arms folded and be waiting to be impressed. I'm not expecting much at all.
Yeah, and just as a heads up, we're not covering 30 games. I'm gonna tell you the things I liked out of it.
Whoa.
And that's it.
Hold on, let's see how slow the news was that week. let's not get ahead of ourselves.
No, dude. Even 30 games, if we spend a minute on it, I guess, yeah, okay, with this 30 minutes, I guess it's possible, but
just to recollect, the biggest thing out of the Summer Games Fest was probably the Callisto Protocol, which is huge. But after that, we're talking about like Marvel's Midnight Suns, which I'm warming up on, Saints Row, Goat Simulator 3. Like, yeah, there wasn't a lot of huge stuff there. At least, maybe I'm not remembering that, but you know what we might see at Gamescom though, Govinda, is Dead Island 2. There's a rumor circulating from everyone's most favorite rumor monger, Tom Henderson, that we might see a re-reveal of Dead Island 2. Now, of course, Dead Island 2 has disappeared. It was first announced in 2014. We haven't seen hide nor fucking hair of it.
oh, I assume this was dead for sure.
Apparently not. Apparently it's still going. There's been a report that it's happening. Like, it's I don't know. It's going to be more Dead Island. It's funny that we just talked about Goat Simulator too, because that trailer at Summer Games Fest was spoofing the original Dead Island 2 announcement trailer where he's jogging down the street and there's like zombies coming up. I actually love Dead Island. I have very fond memories of it.
I was thinking about this. So, do you feel like Dead Island even has a place with Dying Light in existence?
I think it does, because like maybe if Dying Light 2 hadn't flopped in the way it did in my mind. There's another one for Game of the Year. That was a big game from this year.
That was this year?
It was. Yeah, so I don't know. I think there kind of is room for it. I liked its sort of RPG mechanics. It was a fun co-op game too. It was a bit shoddy, but
it was a very fun co-op game, and I think it has a bit more of a zany aspect to it, you know, a bit more.
I also I remember it being kind of scary. Like when I would play it on my own, I would get kind of like creeped out.
Well, scary moments. I guess you go into dark areas and like substations, and you got to deal with that. But it was a really good co-op game, and it was just. I wonder if they'll incorporate any sort of like parkour sort of stuff, or if they'll keep it a little more traditional. I think it's. I don't know. It is hard because Dying Light really did feel a little bit meh when it came out.
Yeah.
So there was something really fun about Dead Island was just the beginning of it, I guess. Dying Light kind of expanded upon it because the first Dying Light was way better, in my opinion, than Dead Island, but. Now there's something that compels me to want to go back to Dead Island and just swing a giant mace covered in chains.
Yeah, you see it on sale on PSN for like literally $2 all the time. Like,
yeah,
all the time.
I think there was also something like the mod system seems very similar to Dying Light, but maybe more expansive. Like I could do more with them. I don't know. I'm trying to remember. Dead Island was such a long time ago, but I just remember that I was on PlayStation and all my friends were on Xbox, and I just played.
I was gonna say, because I have such good memories of like playing it with a full complement of 4 players, like on headsets coordinating, and it was so sick. But yeah, I guess you weren't involved. That was Xbox. Yeah,
that was everyone was playing on Xbox, and I was on my PlayStation alone, which was awesome.
You're just sitting there going, PS3 is so much better.
The cell architecture, there's so much power, so untapped potential. I could be keen. Finally, I can play Dead Island with some friends.
Moving right along, Govinda. Square Enix has reportedly confirmed that it's looking to sell some of its stakes in its studios. Now, this one gets a little more complex, and I'm gonna push it over to you because I think you're the money man.
They held a conference. I don't know if it was a press conference or for shareholders, but they held a conference, and a Japanese-based analyst by the name of David Gibson went to Twitter and then started kind of just summarizing all of the important and big stuff. But I'm not going to go through too much of it because really all you need to know is that the fire sale continues, and they maybe aren't looking to completely sell like studios, but they are looking for like joint venture opportunities. To, quote, improve capital efficiency, end quote. There was something about, I think a lot of this just goes back to when they said they wanted to just focus on Japanese games and leave Western games to Western developers. So who knows what it'll turn into. They're going to have a lot of money left over once this sale goes through for Crystal Dynamics and Eidos. They're going to have a lot of money left over, so they'll have plenty of cash to be investing in games. But I think a lot of this goes down to they couldn't handle that many studios. They were, especially some of the Western ones, like Avengers was a bit of a wet fart when it came out. And while it may be better now, it's probably too late because if the game as a service doesn't pick up, it's going to not pick up, you know? And then what was the other one? Babylon's Fall. Oh, what a game,
Oh, yeah,
dude.
God. Was that this year? I think it was early.
I think so. Square Enix cannot market Western games properly, and I think it's better just to leave that alone for now. But this has kind of brought a rise to speculation that they are looking to either be sold or sell a large stake of the company to someone else. David Gibson goes through and says, I would expect Sony, Tencent, Nexon, etc. would be interested. So, I don't know. We can talk about it I think it's the next one, maybe the one after. We've got something here about Tencent doing something. And we can talk about it then. But I hope that none of that happens and they just keep doing what they're doing.
This does seem like just another stepping stone along the path to Sony ultimately buying Square Enix, which I think we've seen enough little like tidbits where I'm starting to think
Yeah.
that's just kind of going to happen at some point.
I could see them also maybe not buying Square Enix, but buying like a majority stake in Square Enix.
Yeah, something like that.
But we'll see. It just seems like a natural evolution because there's a lot of exclusives already coming from Square Enix, but why would Sony buy Square Enix for exclusives if they're already getting them? It seems a little bit strange.
For the more profits, like a bigger share of the cut.
For the more exclusives.
Yeah, it's Anyway, yeah, like you said, we'll kind of circle back around to this in a moment. But not just yet, because Govinda, Elden Ring had one of the biggest gaming launches in YouTube history. Now, this really blew me away. So, when Elden Ring came out at the start of this year, it was all anyone would talk about. You and I were playing it, we were raving, we're having a great time. In the 60 days after it launched, every Elden Ring video on YouTube cumulatively amassed 3.4 billion views. Now, that is a monstrous number. When I was thinking about that, I was like, oh, but YouTube's really big. To put that in comparison, during the same period, GTA 5 only managed to get 1.98 billion views. That was a sarcastic inflection I put in there. This is a ludicrous amount of views. But think about that. Elden Ring outdid GTA. And to be fair, GTA came out a long time ago and the internet was a different place. But that's big. That's very, very big.
It is very big, but I was trying to look up YouTube's growth statistics because I would say they have grown substantially since GTA came out. While it is super impressive that Elden Ring did that, I'd say if when GTA 6 inevitably comes out, I think it'll be at a similar rate. Now, the only thing I think Elden Ring has in its corner where it may be a little bit harder to topple is that it is a game that is so complicated and things are difficult and there's so many secrets and hidden things that you kind of needed help. Like I looked up heaps of videos, and I don't often do that for new games because I just was like, fuck Godric, how do I deal with this? Or like I'm just getting stuck on something, or just even looking up different builds and stuff like that. There's also a lot of videos coming out of people just doing crazy builds you've never seen before.
Yeah.
Crazy feats in the game. So I think it was a game that fostered this sort of
It certainly lends itself, like you said. Like, it's a cool... Yeah, like, maybe you just have an awesome fight and people would just upload that, and that's cool. I liked that YouTube released these statistics and they sort of broke it down by the most popular channels. Vardy Vidya, Essential, if you've never encountered, he like, unpacks lore, has, like, really deep dives into the lore of the
that's
game.
another thing about this game, too, is, like, for GTA 5, I didn't need someone to explain the story to me.
No, but I watched all of Vardy's videos, and the next one was Fextra Life, who are the build masters. They were putting out like a different build every day, and it was so sick. Like what they would do.
Yeah, just to give context, the YouTube stat page it says Elden Lord Awards. So Vardy Video was the Lord Specialist Award. Fextra Life is the all-knowing guide because I looked at Fextra Life almost every day while I played that game.
Yeah, it was sort of the wiki. Very impressive. From what I understand, that's mostly the work of one guy. It's very impressive.
For Fextra Life.
I think he's got like people working for him, but there's the main dude. He does like all the VO. He's just kind of a machine.
That's crazy.
I mean, Vardy Video is one guy. He actually got in trouble though a few years back because, I mean, he does all his own research too, but he has been accused, allegedly, of sort of amalgamating the community's discoveries and sort of passing them off as his own. So take from that one.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, yes.
But isn't that like historians?
Yeah, I guess so. That's an interesting way to put it. I mean,
like, isn't that just what a historian does? It goes, here's a bunch of sources of material that I've gotten from different places that I've compiled into one place.
I guess the difference is, and historians do this, but somehow it's different in gaming, is that Vardy Video directly profits from it, whereas all those other community members don't.
If God of War doesn't hit 3.5 billion after 60 days, it's definitely not winning Game of the Year, guaranteed.
Yeah,
it means it's a bad game. I think
I would agree, 100% agree.
Where's Forbidden West on this fucking list?
Absolutely, not even ranking.
Under Skyrim. Oh, scoff.
Next up, Govinda, Beyond Good and Evil 2 just found its new lead writer. For those keeping count at home, Beyond Good and Evil 2 was announced 15 years ago. Think about that.
Wait,
Yep.
was it actually announced 15 years ago?
It was announced 15 years ago. Back in 2008, it was teased. Now, the original came out... Oh, I actually don't even remember, but it was re-released in a HD version in 2011. So...
Wow,
This
so that was the
is-
E3 reveal? Was that within 2008?
The E3 reveal was almost a decade after that. That was 2017 when we saw that little trailer.
Okay, I was going to say, because my understanding was the game's been in like proper development for like 5 years.
Apparently, but we have nothing from it. Like, we just keep hearing that it's... I was going through all the Push Square, like, back articles, like what they've written over the years, and it's just things like, still in development, Ubisoft confirms, still in development, like, it's coming. Oh, delayed
So
for another
weird,
year.
dude. That's what Ubisoft is such a concern for me. Just to mention too, I don't know if you mentioned it, and I'm sorry if you did, but Sarah Orellano, she announced yesterday that she will be the head writer on Beyond Good and Evil 2. The concern I have here is, why are they hiring a writer this far into development?
Yeah, right
head
on
writer.
the point. Yes, you're right on the point. Oh, I mean, look, this thing could be getting rebooted for the umpteenth time.
Well, I also remember I think it's going to be a bit more of a service game than just a straight up game. So potentially it's like there's a chance that she'll be writing additional content.
Yeah.
But it feels weird still. You know what I mean?
This is one of those ones where I have no nostalgia for. I never played the original. I don't even know anyone that's played the original. I never hear it talked about. I just hear about this game that is never coming out at this point.
I'd say the header photo that you have on this article is actually pretty sick, though.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know
It's a
what
cool...
it is. It looks like a grungy Overwatch.
Yeah, it's sort of like a sci-fi future in which the alien races are actually anthropomorphic animal people, like the pigman that you've seen.
Yeah, and there's like
the monkey
a
boy.
shark guy and a panda guy.
Yeah.
Look, I don't know what this is. I didn't play the first one, but I'm interested still. I'm just concerned that Ubisoft is responsible for it, and it's taken 15 years to get even into early stages of testing.
Speaking of Ubisoft, Govinda, they're about to be bought out by Tencent, or at least it looks like they're preparing to buy a majority stake in quite a troubling development.
Yeah, it is a little bit troubling. And so I see two sides of this. One, Ubisoft's in trouble, so someone needs to step in, because I don't think Yves Guillemot is going to fix it. And I don't think, nor does he have any ambition to, because Ubisoft is struggling, and I think time after time they are kind of dropping the ball. So on one side of it, it's kind of nice to see someone buy a big publisher who's not just going to go and make things exclusives. Like, I didn't want Sony to buy them. I don't want Microsoft to buy them. So, look, they're a big name in the gaming industry. It'd be sad to see them just disappear. It seems unlikely as well.
Yeah.
But on the other side of it, I'm a little concerned about Tencent buying it.
Oh, yeah.
And for, like, look at it this way. This is the best way I could explain this. So China bought a bunch of Reddit. They've got a bunch of gaming like developers and publishers now that they have like majority stakes in. If China started buying the New York Times, CNN, like, I don't think people would be so like okay about that.
No. But I guess they are, like, to be fair, they are quite different scale. Like, Ubisoft isn't really comparable to the New York Times.
But they have much more than just Ubisoft. And so now what would happen if the next, like there's just this possibility that the Chinese Communist Party's ideals will start maybe permeating into games that are coming out, where China are the good guys, and you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think there's just like there's a possibility where they start using it to influence people, and they are maybe like, well, the old media is kind of dead, so let's look at the new media side of things, and we can start influencing things that way. Like, you can't talk about Taiwan anymore.
Yeah, that stuff's also interesting in the wake of Pelosi Gate. That was this week.
Pelosi
too,
going to
wasn't it?
Taiwan and then
Yeah.
flipping out about it. Well, also, like, it is looking increasingly likely that they are going to possibly invade Taiwan. So
Yeah, that's all really scary. That's something I think about a lot because apparently,
Yeah.
from all the stuff I read, it's like Xi Jinping is looking to secure his legacy, and part of that would be to actually have Taiwan come back into the fold. Like, maybe now's the time.
I was actually looking at some really interesting stuff because one of the premier global manufacturers of microchips and transistors and silicon stuff is in Taiwan. And the guy who runs it was saying something like it sounded like a hollow threat, or maybe not hollow, like a sort of a threat that like they will not let China get a hold of that manufacturing plant.
Yeah.
And they are the main supplier to China. And if they were to hypothetically destroy that plant before China got a hold of it, China would be 30 years behind technologically. They could not catch up and make their own plants quick enough. So it was a real interesting read that I was seeing.
Yeah, and just to put a finer point on that, Tencent currently owns 15%. They're looking to buy, they want 51. They want a controlling
stake. They want
stake.
Majority, yeah, controlling
apparently,
stake. And they already have stakes in Epic Games, Riot Games, Sumo Digital. There's more there as well. So they're really amassing a bit of a portfolio here. And I hope it's not to the detriment of the gaming industry.
Yeah, and like even just outside of all that, it's like Tencent just fill it with fucking microtransactions. Like it's already that way with Ubisoft, and that's like have you ever seen League of Legends these days? It's like it's kind of concerning. It's funny though because you're just like, well, it's probably just going to happen though.
Yeah, probably. And money talks. Like they, who was it? Who was trying to buy majority of Ubisoft a while ago, and the Guillemot family was just like they fought hard against it.
It was Vivendi. They were another French company.
That's right.
Yeah.
Vivendi wanted to do it, and they were avidly against it, fought hard against it. So there must be some money on the table. Yeah, and so there must be some, because that was like a hostile takeover. That was like less of like let's make a deal, and more of like we're just going to take you by force. And they were not into that. So I guess the fact that there's money on the table from Tencent, and probably a lot of it, probably speaks volumes.
All right, Govinda. Now it's time for the news we care about. All right, Govinda, in a stunning series of events, PlayStation podcast Sacred Symbols have lampooned a leaked script for the next Tomb Raider game in development at Crystal Dynamics, codenamed Jawbreaker. Journalist Colin Moriarty's sources provided the script, which was then proven accurate by what happened next. Crystal Dynamics hit Patreon with a DMCA request to remove the offending audio. Moriarty complied, and the audio was removed from Patreon services, although, interestingly, YouTube was not served with a similar notice, and the audio can still be heard on that platform. The following passage comes from the leaked script and describes the tone Crystal Dynamics is going for. Now, hang with me, Govinda. I'm going to dive in. This is the setup for the next Tomb Raider game. Are you ready? Blink once if yes. He blinked. Lara Croft is now at the top of her game. Gone are the days of the young, inexperienced woman dealing with matters of legacy and familial reckoning. Lara has let go of her childhood and fully embraced a life of adventure and purpose. Her legendary career has been lauded in print and tabloids, tall tales of adventure that have inspired a new generation of Tomb Raiders to seek their fortunes in the world. And with this new phase of her life, Lara fully accepted her place among the ruins. For many years, Lara plumbed the depths of forgotten places, played cat and mouse with many nefarious opponents, and worked to uncover, preserve, and protect the lost secrets of the world lest they fall into the wrong hands. But as the years have passed, Lara has become lonely at the top. The beginning of this next chapter presents Lara with the quintessentially adult problem facing something too big to handle, alone on this new adventure. Lara will encounter a challenge she can only overcome with a team at her side. Collaboration is foreign to her. She's always succeeded alone, so in this situation, she's a fishy out of water.
Also to note, this was on a casting call, and I believe the script that Colin had was the script that they would read for the casting of Lara Croft. At the top of it had a description of what they were looking for, and it said, quote, they're looking for this is from Colin. They're looking for a female in her mid-30s who's white, 5'6", athletic, and a prototype of Emily Blunt and Rosamund Pike. So they're looking for Lara Croft as you know her.
Yeah.
But just older.
that tracks. And it's like worth noting before we actually talk about the game or whatever, like, did you actually hear it? Because it's hilarious.
Oh, yeah. So on the show, Colin got the other host to act out the scene, and Chris Reagan was Lara Croft and put on a strangely very Greg Miller accent of an English person.
Yes, the irony.
Accent, like the most aggressive Cockney British accent.
And I love it too. Like, even as they talked about, they were like, serious lawyers at Crystal Dynamics and Square Enix sat in a boardroom and listened to him do that.
Even Colin's lawyers had to listen to it.
Yes.
A lot of people had to listen to this and then make an executive decision on what to do about it. The other thing is also, it's not just on YouTube. It's still on all the podcast services. All the audio podcasts and stuff, it's all still there. Just on Patreon, it had to be changed.
So interesting. You think they'd go a little further?
If they were going to get him for it, why just Patreon? Like, why not everywhere? It seems really odd.
But the beauty of it is now we know this is 100% real, because why would they get lawyers involved otherwise?
Truth in its denial. Like, it's so bizarre. So there was two new characters in the script.
It's the Barbara Streisand effect, isn't it?
I don't know what that is.
The Streisand effect is a name for the phenomenon in which attempts to hide, censor, or prevent access to something has the opposite result, the unintended consequence of drawing far more attention to that thing.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly what this is. But the script goes on and notes that there's two new characters that we've not heard of before in the series, Tanvi and Devindra. And there is also part of the casting said romantic scenes with another female character, and there's no nudity or simulated sex. So It looks like Lara might be gay or bisexual in this one, and they're going to try and give her a team, which I'm not into.
Well, we should talk about all that. So there was some chudlies, some chuddy folks who think this is like some kind of Tomb Raider's gone woke thing just for the fact that, I don't know, Lara might be gay, or at least bi in this. But I think, I can't remember her ever having a male love interest.
Correct. I don't think, as far as I'm aware, and someone can correct me if they want to, I don't think she's ever had that. And I think that was mainly because she was always meant to be strong and independent, and like she was focused on the job, and that was her whole thing. So there's a few things I don't like about this. One, if you actually listen to the script on their show, and like without the jokey accents aside, it sounds bad. Like it sounds like bad writing.
We should talk about that. It sounds hokey as hell.
And I'd say that I think the Tomb Raider that I played, the first one, was actually not too bad of the reboot. But I felt like as like the interactions with other characters was always stood out to me as really bad, even in that first game. Like I remember where they crash land on the island or whatever, and like she's got to talk to, and it's just like cringy. The other characters were bad. Like they can't develop characters well.
I wanted to say just before I forgot, like from the first game, there's like her buddy, the big dude. Yeah. And in the second game, which I really like too, he's sort of like your man in the chair. He's like on the comms. Yeah. And like, I'm like, I don't know that she is alone. Like she has had help previously. It's like...
Yeah, it just does seem like they're trying to do a bit more of a Nathan Drake vibe where they are like, let's get him a Sully and get him a Chloe, and like they're on the adventure with him. And so they'll get some people on the adventure with her. But I liked Lara being alone. Like it was... It kind of makes it kind of scary. And like when I was a kid, I remember playing like Tomb Raider on PS1 and actually being like scared because I'm like, a tiger is going to jump out and fucking eat me, and I'd be scared of it. So I think it kind of adds a little tensity to the scene.
There was a horror to the PS1 where like the gameplay was just kind of so clunky that it was terrifying. Like, like if a tiger jumped out, it was so hard to avoid it that you would just get murdered. And like that was this thing with Resident Evil. Like, it was so hard to like avoid these things that it was kind of scary.
And that's why like new Resident Evils even still have a bit of a clunky, stilted mechanic just to kind of add to that, I think.
Yeah.
Like you can't like run and shoot, or, you know, like if you're aiming, you're really slow. But so I don't know how I feel about this. I actually really haven't played I played the first Tomb Raider. I actually really liked it, but I didn't play the other ones, and they got a little too... go around, collect things, crafting. Like it got a little too craft heavy, maybe.
Yeah, I maintain that the second one is awesome. Rise of the Tomb Raider is really good. I was saying to you, I kind of want to go back and beat Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which I've started like 3 times. It's certainly...
Is that the one where you start in like an open area? I feel like it got a little too open worldy, crafty for me. Like I was collecting too many resources and stuff.
It sort of has that Arkham thing where like a different team made the third game, and it's like kind of feels like slightly B grade compared to the first two. But like you should play Rise of the Tomb Raider. It's really good.
I probably won't. I need Uncharted to be gone for a little bit longer before I feel the urge to, you know?
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny that it is called Rise of the Tomb Raider, because this whole concept here reminds me of like The Dark Knight Rises. It's like, this seems like an older, jaded...
been there a long time.
And even the fact that there's, oh no, that was the Dark Knight, was it? Where there's the copycats. The copycat Batman, like dressing up and... Like, that's what this says, that there's other adventurers inspired, like a new generation of Tomb Raiders. That kind of sounds interesting to me.
The one thing I do really like is it seems like at the start it says, gone are the days of the young experienced woman dealing with matters of legacy and family reckoning. I'm kind of glad, because as far as I'm aware, every Tomb Raider is her trying to find her dad or follow something that he did, or like there's always something to do with that.
Yeah.
And I think it gets a little tired as it repeats.
In fairness, that's sort of like the legacy of Drake in Uncharted, like where he's like, you know, he's looking for Drake's lost treasure, whatever. He's got the fucking,
true.
You know, like it's just something to draw you through.
I guess. You're not wrong, but if for some reason that seems a little bit more like adventurous than just being like my dad. It was like I was watching that Blown Away show, and there was this lady, and her husband had died like 6 months before she got there, and I was like, oh man, that's pretty brutal. And she's like, yeah, I came here because he told me I should do it before he passed away, and so now I'm doing it, all this stuff. And I was like, oh, brutal. And so, but then every single episode, everything that she made was always, oh, I'm doing this for my husband, or like this is something we collaborate on together. It's all in this. And so every single episode she was talking about how her husband died. And by the end of it, I was like, lady, like you got to have something else up your sleeve.
That's her story. You know? That's.
I know. But then there was another guy, he was very good and he got through it. And then like in one episode, he was like, oh, like my dad died. I don't talk about it a lot, but I just thought I'd do one piece for him. And I was like, see, that's how you do it. It has way more impact if you give me one piece that's dedicated to that one event rather than it constantly being there. And that's how I feel about Lara always going after her dad.
It's funny though, because now I can't help but see that similarity in Uncharted, because like that's sort of the whole thing in Uncharted 4. You just have his brother instead of a dad, who was kind of a father figure to him anyway.
That was just Uncharted 4. Yeah,
but it's like that's The Last Crusade in Indiana Jones. That was all about him going after his father's legacy. But
that's one movie. You know what I mean? When you do it in every single game, it's
I'm
one
challenging
thing.
that. I don't think she does. I think that only happens in that first game. I don't think that's the case in the second one.
Oh, I'm talking all the way back to PS1.
Oh, okay. I was talking about.
I'm talking about the series of Lara Croft and Tomb Raider. Sorry.
Even then, I don't really remember them that well. I know there's like a flashback in one of the early ones, and you can like.
And then I'm also thinking about the movies, and the movies as it's much family oriented. So I think it's just the character of Lara Croft has gone through a lot of permeations, and there's always some thread of like the father's not there. Where did he go? I got to follow his trail, kind of thing. Yeah. Which is really interesting because I think that's exactly what they did with Chloe in
The Lost Legacy.
Legacy, yeah.
It's kind of interesting how really much they all... I mean, they're all just working off Indiana Jones.
Like they don't work together, but it's still incestuous. Like it's all just kind of mimicking... It's just kind of the genre though, right? Like I think it's just genre tropes that they're trying to...
It is funny though, because right now I'm like, I might download Shadow of the Tomb Raider, but I know... There's too many puzzles. I don't want that many puzzles. And that's the thing about Tomb Raider is it has more puzzles than Uncharted.
Yeah, it's definitely puzzle heavy.
Yeah. Damn it.
I don't know why I don't like the puzzles. I always like the puzzles, especially if they're well done. If they're like what was it? Maybe it was Lost Legacy. There was one where I'm like, God, you're recycling these puzzles. Like you've got 3 different puzzles and you've done the same one. I think it is Lost Legacy. And I was like, okay, these puzzles are getting a little tired but I remember the first Tomb Raider, Rise of the Tomb Raider.
Is
this Tomb Raider?
No, the second one is Rise of the Tomb Raider.
Okay, whatever the first reboot Tomb Raider was, like that, I remember having pretty diverse puzzles and being kind of interesting, and I like that.
Specifically the tombs. And that comes back in the later games. Like there's some wild ones, and they're like a full area interactive, and they're like
you're spending like 40 minutes trying to deal with a puzzle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look, maybe I might have to revisit at least Shadow. But anyway, that's all it really needs to be. It was just a fun story. And I wonder like whether this changes anything now. Now that this is out there and it's kind of getting mocked by idiots like us.
I hope so.
This...
Well, they should not do what Ubisoft does and get a new lead writer before it's 5 years into development.
I will say, I think, like, even I'm kind of skirting around it now. Like, Shadow of the Tomb Raider sort of left a weird last note. I think they do need their Uncharted 4 to come in and, like, sort of end this phase of the Tomb Raider reboot. And then it can go away like Uncharted has.
And just really quickly before we go, I know Colin mentioned it on the podcast too. A lot of people were wondering why Square Enix is issuing DMCAs for a studio they sold. But obviously the sale isn't done yet. They announced it, but obviously it's going to take probably some months before they actually offload Crystal Dynamics and Eidos. So,
oh yeah, you're right. Sorry, I actually said Crystal Dynamics did that. You're right. It was Square Enix did that.
Yeah. Square Enix issued the DMCAs or DMCA. It's weird. It's still it doesn't make sense to me. Like they have to. It on his Patreon it says where you can find him other than Patreon. So it seems so strange they didn't do it to other platforms. But
super selective. But it is what it is.
Then maybe they wanted to confirm it, but hopefully they update it because the script was pretty cringe.
All right, Govinda, get me out of here. I want my yum dinner.
This has been an episode of Long Live Play. The number has escaped me, so I'm not going to even mention it.
62.
I've been me. Khayl's been him. We might be here next week. We might not. Who knows? I'm this close, Khayl, to packing up my editing boots and just being like, we're not doing this anymore unless you do it. And that's how close I am. If anyone is watching, which I know you're not, for all the audio listeners, I've pinching my fingers very close together.
They're so close. They're almost touching.
Until next week, maybe. Goodbye.
Goodbye.